Yo, what's going on, everybody? Jay with this, back at it again with what if Deku was able to bend water? I mean, come on. Let's be so for real. Y'all loved this. Like, I'm honestly so happy that I can make videos that you guys enjoy, and this one it's a good one, cause I think y'all are gonna like it. It starts out very slice of life. I'm gonna let y'all know this right now. It is very slice of life ish. Like, so if you guys don't like that, then but then you might not like the first half of what this is gonna be about. But I guess without further ado, let's get into what if Deku was a waterbender. So our story starts off with our main protagonist, Izuku, leaving the hospital with Todoroki, Ida, and Endeavor, and they all go back to their respective internships for another like week. And then after this, Manuel, Endeavor, and whoever else was there, I don't exactly remember. But anyways, so they all put in like a great word for Izuku, Todoroki, and Ida, and the school sees this and are like, very good, and blah, 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 blah. And they all go back to UA after, like, yeah, no, they just go back to UA and they have regular, like, courses over the basic material, like math, English, science, history, and then basic hero courses, like, not too strenuous, but enough to, like, give, like, the students knowledge. And after this, Aizawa says, listen, class, we have finals in about a little bit over a month, so you guys are just gonna not just gonna have to be prepared mentally, but also physically, because we have a physical portion, just like we do every year. Don't worry, I will not. I will make sure you guys are not unprepared for this. And and he says for the next month, we're going to be studying in class, but you guys also need to be studying and training outside of class. So class, take out your notebooks and turn to page. And then he starts his lesson, and everybody's like, so cool. And anyways, so uh Deku, he sends out in a group chat to Todoroki, Momo, Inasa, and Ida, and Fiyumi as well. And he's like, yo, y'all trying to go over to my house to study and like get ready for these finals? And they all agree. And so what happens is after school they all meet up and then they all go to Izuku's house. And after this, they get to his house and Fuyumi comes like is over there and she helps his like foster parents make some snacks and some tea. And what happens after this is she brings them and Izuku says thank you, and she stays with them and is like, man, I don't know how y'all keep up with this stuff, there's so much stuff to learn. He's like, yeah, there might be a lot of stuff to learn, but it's a fun challenge. And she's like, yeah, I know. And she just lays her head in his lap and she just falls asleep. He smiles, putting a blanket over her, and Todoroki's just like, oh yeah, just watch this. Like, thinking, like, he just smiles at Izuku, like a little bit of a wink, like thinking telepathically, and just like saying, oh yeah, watch this. And what he does is he pulls Momo close and just like wraps his arm around her, and just like the basic couple fashion, and Izuku and Todoroki start thinking telepathic, and he's just like, yeah, you're getting a dap up later. And Todoroki's like, oh yeah, for sure. And after this, like, Momu's like blushing like crazy, like barely able to think straight, but eventually she gains composure. And Todoroki and Izuku look at each other, then look at Ida and Inasa, and Deku's and Izuku's like, you get Ida, I get Ida, you get Inasa, and he's like, I know, you get Ida, I get Inasa, and Todoroki's like, oh yeah. So Todoroki, he takes out his phone and he texts a few people. He uses his connections and he finds out that Ida really likes Uraraka, and Uraraka really likes Ida. So he texts up Uraraka and is like, "Hey, pull up to Izuku's house. Like, we're having a study sesh. Like, uh, oh yeah, and your little crush Ida is here." And she just sends the blushing emojis and says, "On the way," like OTW all caps. And she gets there in 5 minutes, or like less than 5 minutes, and she lives like 20 minutes away. Like, so this is an accomplishment. Like, she must have like gone through some crazy stuff. And she gets there, and Todoroki and Ida are like, Todoroki and Izuku are just like, hey, Ida, you mind grabbing the door? He goes and grabs the door, like immediately blushing, guiding Uraraka to the room, and she looks at Todoroki with like a slight smirk. And what she does is Like she sits really close to Ida and she just lays her head on his shoulder and it's like a cute scene and they both blush and it's that like it's simple and they all just keep on studying and finally like he gets a text like Izuku gets a text back from somebody. He's like, oh yeah, and apparently, I'll save that for later. He texted somebody that he knew that Inasa really liked, and Ibara thought she thought that he was pretty interesting, Ibara, the girl with the plant heads, and the reason why I'm saying her, one, they're both elemental quirks, and two, Ibara must have like a lot of respect for Izuku, just because of the fact that like he didn't land like a single like he wasn't like he tried whenever he fought her, but at the same time it's like he didn't try and like hurt her. Like he was being very respectful. So she comes and Deku and Todoroki are like, "Hey, Inasa, go get that door." With like a slight smirk, and Inasa's like, "Oh, okay." And he grabs the door, and I swear, you could probably hear the door slamming shut. And he's like, and Inasa just bursts in the room like, "Why did you invite her? How did you find out?" And he's like, "Go let her in. I feel bad now." And Inasa's like, oh my gosh. And Izuku's just like, if you don't let her in, I'll go do it for you. And you're gonna seem like a jerk. And Inasa's like, okay. And he lets her in, and he's like, sorry, I just had to go. There were cookies in the oven that were about to burn. And Ibaru's like, oh, you like to bake? And Inasa's like, yeah, of course. He's lying straight out of his teeth. And Ibaru's just like, oh, I like a man that can cook, you know. And Inasa likes to cook. He doesn't bake, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got you. I'll cook for you sometime." And they both just like blush, and then they go to the room, and Ibara is a little bit more, how do I say it, bold. So what she does is whenever she gets in there, like she wraps her hair around him, pulling him close, and just like makes him like be affectionate. So with that, and then they just keep on studying because in Ibarra is going to have a different exam, but it's still the same like concepts. And Todoroki's like, "Oh yeah, we are the best middleman ever." And after this, um, like this is a little bit like of like half their month of them doing this like every day, like Ibara, Uraraka, Fuyumi, Momo, Todoroki, Deku. Okay, I'm not gonna list them, but all of them just coming over and hanging out and studying. Kaminari and Mina join in a bit sometimes as well. After this, like after like that like half of the month, the next thing that they do is for the other half of the month, they just run sparring battles and they train themselves up. So, which actually leads to a little bit of character development. So, Izuku, he honed his bloodbending skill, but he realized that he doesn't want to use it too much because it is still a kind of morally wrong thing to do. And then he can also reach an even higher temp and an even lower temp. He also learned how to control the soil and the like he controlled the water in the soil, so he could pull, instead of pulling it from the plants and killing the plants, he pulls it from the deepest soil that carries the most amount of water, and he brings it up to the top to nourish the plants, and so that way he can use that water in order to like do more things, and it'll have less of an impact on the environment. I don't know if that's actually how it works, but we're gonna say it is. So after this, he also worked on doing the same thing with air and being able to control the water molecules in the air. And then he also did it with like all different types of substances. Like he learned how to control like really like thick substances and then really like fine substances as well. Or thin, whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. And then Todoroki, what he worked on, he can reach an even higher temp with his flames and an even lower temp with his ice. Like putting it to the extreme, like way beyond Sub-Zero and way beyond what's it called for heat point? I don't remember, but like crazy temperatures. And Ida, he pulled out his engines and now he can run even faster. Uraka can float for longer. Momo doesn't solely rely on her quirk. Inasa is just Inasa. He's just broken. Like, I don't really know what y'all want me to tell you. Like, if he actually, like, fully trained, like, I think he would be one of the most broken characters in the series. just because you guys know how OP air is. You guys can't see air. Like, the only reason why we can see air in MHA from Inasa and from all of these other shows is because of like effect. That really puts it into perspective. That means whenever airbenders bend air, they just think that they're getting hit with a chi ball. Like, they don't think they're getting hit with air. They just think, man, what is this guy doing a really weird dance for? Why is he acting like he's doing a Kamehameha? Like, bro, like, they don't see it. They might see like a faint like vision of like uh what's it called? Like a disturbance in the like the area, but it's like they still can't see it. It's like I don't know. But that's just crazy to me. But like you guys can't see it. It's really just like author's effect. And like I want an author or like an animator to make a true to life like air scene where you can't see the air, you just know that they're getting hit with a devious combo using air. And after this, it was the day of the finals, and Izuku actually gets the top of his class because, you know, he got some premium study time with Fuyumi, if you know what I'm talking about. And then it was followed by Momo, Todoroki, Ida, Inasa, and Uraraka, in that order. And so there are four major battles that I want to focus on for these finals, and I'm sorry if it's going like a little bit rushed, but I really want to get into the forest arc. And so the number one fight that I want to really focus on is Todoroki and Izuku versus Endeavor. And oh my gosh, like Izuku could end the fight in one blow, but Todoroki's like, "Hey, would you let me handle this?" And Izuku's like, "Yeah, but the second you start losing, I'm going to put that man into an ice coffin. Like I wanted to do that since the day I met him." And Todoroki's like, "I bet if I start losing though, right?" And Izuku's like, yeah, if you start losing." And by that I mean if I feel like joining it. And Todoroki's like, "Fine, but just let me run the ones for at least 5 minutes." And Deku's like, "Fine, I'll give you 8 minutes because we have 10 minutes in here. So if you can't beat him in 8 minutes, then I'm putting him in an ice coffin, plain and simple." And Todoroki's like, "I bet." So Endeavor starts off the battle launching a huge heat wave, and Deku's like, "All right, 8 minutes starting now," and he covers himself in a water dome, and just watches the fight. And Todoroki, he blocks the fire with ice and then retracts it, and he starts just slowly walking towards Endeavor, and he's like, "Hey, oh man, run the ones real quick. Hey, let's start off just using flames." And he activates his fire side, activating his ice side as well to keep both sides of his body cool down. He launches a massive fire attack at Endeavor, and he's like, "Huh, cute. It didn't even phase me." And then he realizes that wasn't supposed to hit him. And Todoroki all of a sudden is behind him. He kicks him up into the air, hitting him with a massive fire attack. And Endeavor just eats it because he is fire. He contacts it with fire and engulfs himself in it because he has a extreme flame like durability level because he's been working on that for years, and his own flames hurt him. Which I always find like kind of funny in series, like how they make fire quirks or like fire abilities that still hurt the body, which makes sense. Like, don't get me wrong, like if we had like a lightsaber, we would like burn before we could even get near it. Like, so the heat tolerance in order to wield a lightsaber, I mean, that's also your science fiction, but it's also like it kind of goes back to like the whole principle of that. So anyways, and Endeavor just eats and is like, "Your flames are cute, but they're not hot enough." And Todoroki's like, "Yeah, I know. That's that you. There's only one thing I can thank you for. That it's not only my ice." And Endeavor's still fly. I mean, he's like, "It's not only my fire that I can use." And Endeavor's like, "Wait, what? No!" And Todoroki immediately slams his foot down, making a huge ice spike. Like, not ice spike, but like an ice geyser that like immediately engulfs Endeavor. And Izuku comes out of his water dome and he's like, "Took you long enough. Let's see. That was a 2 minute span? Man, I really thought you would have had that in a minute." And Todoroki's like, "Yeah, I know. I don't know why. I must have been getting soft on the old man." And all of a sudden, we see a faint glow in the ice. And he melts the entire geyser, and he's like, "Shoto!" And Deku's like, "Ugh." You have 6 more minutes, and he just covers himself back into an ice dome. And Chota's like, don't you know how to give it a rest, old man? And they just start clashing again with their flames, like kind of like a clash in Dragon Ball, how they like clash like Kamehamehas. They just start clashing with their fire, and Endeavor hits him with a sneaky move, hitting him with a fire uh, on his left side, making him like have to like mess up his right side with his flames. And Izuku's like, hey, that's not fair, old man. You better keep it straight. You know he only has half. But if you're able to use both sides, Todoroki, do it. And Todoroki immediately activating both sides, which like Endeavor didn't think he could do yet, or like didn't think he could do it in general. And Todoroki's like, ugh, you really made me pull out all the stops, aren't you, Izuku? And he's just like, of course I am. I can't stand to watch this old man, this old hag beat you. And Endeavor's like, I'm not that old. And Todoroki's like, you are in our eyes. And he stomps on the ground, making an ice geyser, like pull Endeavor closer to him. And he grabs Endeavor's arm, throwing him over his shoulder, hitting him with ice and fire at the same exact time, merging it together, hitting him with it. And he's just like, ah. And he's like, kidding. And he kicks Todoroki off him. And Deku's like, all right, 8 minutes are up. And he comes out of the water dome. And he's like, oh, Todoroki, mind if I use this? And he takes all of his ice from his massive ice geyser. And he's like, oh, thanks, bro. And Todoroki's like, wait, it's been 8 minutes already? And he's like, yeah. And all of a sudden, Endeavor gets encapsulated in this massive, like, ice coffin. And he's like, when did you even get water on me? And he was like, and Deku was just like, remember whenever you melted Todoroki's ice? Well, you kind of soaked yourself. I mean, even if you were to have, I don't know, cool, or like, even if you were to turn all of that water into steam with your flames, it wouldn't have really mattered because your clothes are still wet. And he's like, dang. And he's like, I see what Shoto was meaning about this ice coffin thing. And he's like, yeah, so hot on the inside that you can't boil yourself out of it, so cold on the outside that you can't get out of it. Like, and Endeavor's like, it's an interesting prospect. So, and All Might just says, Hero Teams wins! And he just releases Endeavor, and Todoroki and Deku just dap each other up again, and Endeavor's like, man, y'all two have like a really good friendship. And he's like, and Izuku's just like, yeah, we know. Like, it's because of you. Actually, no, he wouldn't have said that. He wouldn't have wanted to admit that. But it truthfully is, like, they bonded over, like Todoroki having a crappy dad, and Izuku not having a dad, really. Like, one that, like, resonated with him. It kind of, it just has that, like, chemistry. And after this, we have a fight between Mina and Ida versus Ectoplasm, which really the number one way I can see this happening or like going down is Ida using his reciprocal burst with Mina on his back and just slams all of his clones while Mina threatens to Ida just carrying Mina on his back and dashing out of the arena. That's like the easiest way I can think about like how that fight would go. And then Momo and Uraraka versus Aizawa. Ooh, this one's gonna be good. Because they don't have anything to really block their sights, but Momo's like, what if we did this? And what she does is she creates a massive cannon and she fires it at Aizawa, but it's not anything that you would think, like, it wasn't a cannonball, it was a cloak. And she covers Aizawa, and she's like, Titan, and she yanks her right arm, and all of a sudden the cloak just immediately tightens up on his body, and he's like completely restricted, and he's like, what the? And she creates a little pulley system to where it like won't budge, and she's like, just say we win already. And she like wraps him in the capture tape as well, and All Might's just like, Hero Team wins. And she's just like, sorry, Aizawa, this was the easiest way I could think about. And if you would have ended up dodging that, our next plan was for Uraraka to use zero gravity on me and me launch at you at max speed. And after that, well, I think you can guess the rest. And he's like, well, dang. And she unties it, like undoes everything, and they all just walk back up. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, Bakugo and Inasa versus All Might. And this one's gonna be a doozy. Like, what's going to happen is they're both going to want to try and like run the ones with him, but the second like Inasa and Bakugo both realize they're not beating him, like they're not going to beat him, I don't even think I need to cover this fight. So, but regardless, what Inasa does is like the second that he sees that massive air attack, he's like, I want to try and do that one day. And Bakugo's like, stop reveling in his glory. He's All Might, he's the #1. Obviously he's awesome. And Inasa's like, whatever. And he just like activates his like wind, making him fly towards All Might. And he's like, All Might, you can't win this. We will beat you. And All Might's just like, are you sure about that, heroes? And he launches like air attack, air attack, air attack. And Inasa's like, I will learn how to do that one day, but for now. And then as he says this, All Might just like randomly appears behind Inasa's back and is just like, I found you, hero, and like sends him flying into 2 buildings. And then he launches that, and then Inasa's like, ah, and he spits out like spit and blood. And right as All Might's about to wrap him in the capture tape, we just hear Bakugo yelling, Howitzer impact, landing a massive explosion on All Might's back. And All Might goes down a bit with it, but he turns around looking up at Bakugo with a little bit of a side eye, going all the way up and hitting him with an uppercut, sitting straight up into the air. And as he falls, he just launches a full power attack, hitting him into a building. Like, this is crazy work. Like, he hit him with the Gon and Pito combo. Like, bro, like, whenever Gon just kicked him up into the air, and he's like, wait for it, boom, sending him flying. And after this, Inasa's like, Bakugo, you're our only hope. And what he does is he wraps Bakugo in his wind and he sends him flying, like towards the exit gate. And All Might's like, no! And he like starts running, and Bakugo's like, you can't catch me, old man. And he explodes. And he reaches the gate, and he makes it through, making Bakugo and Inasa the winners. And after this, all of who won in canon and all of who lost in canon actually just win and lose, and it's the basics. So now they all make their way back up to the classroom, and Aizawa explains to them that even if you lost, or even if you won, or even if you failed the exam, that you're still going on the going on the trip. However, you're just going to be taking the remedial courses. And everybody's like, wait, what trip? And he's like, wait, did I forget to tell y'all? I don't get paid enough for this. And he explains that they're going to be going to a forest training camp for 2 weeks. And everyone's like, yeah! So everybody, like, they have like a week to prepare and get all this stuff. And they go to the mall, and I do see like a Shigaraki thing happening. However, if I'm gonna be honest with you, it's just gonna go the exact same as it did in canon, with like Shigaraki just like holding him and Izuku just talking to him, and he's just like, how did you beat my Nomu? And Deku's like, well, to be fair, this shit was weak. Like, that's all he says, and Shigaraki's like, oh my goodness, you're so cocky. And he's like, nah, I just have confidence because I'm like, actually good. And after this, Uraraka and Ida walk over and blah 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 blah. The rest is history. So after this, I actually see them getting onto the bus, and I would see Inasa and Izuku sitting together, just because Ibara's not on that trip with them yet, and then neither is Fuyumi, because Todoroki's gonna be sitting with Momo, Uraraka and Ida are gonna be sitting together. And I mean, come on now, like, Hiroshima and Mina are sitting together, Kaminari and Jiro, the basics. And Inasa's like, well, I guess it's just us two on this trip. And he's like, nah, I got me a girl. You just need to talk to Ibara more. Like, we can all see how much she looks at you and you look at her. Trust me, bro, she is into you. And he's like, what, you really think so? Dude, nobody knew for sure if Uraraka and Ida liked each other, and look at them now. And they're all just cuddled up. And Inasa's like, wait, you knew? And he's like, of course I knew. I'm the best middleman. And he puts his AirPods in and looks out the window, and Inasa thinks back to it, and he's like, wait, now that I'm thinking about it, Ibata did say something about him texting her. And she did think that he was saying it for her. Like, that's why she came over, because she thought that he was talking about him. Like, he wanted her to come over for him. But he was like, but then whenever she got over there, she immediately understood. So she understood the assignment, and she passed extremely well. So anyways, Inasha's just like, dang, he is the best middleman. And after this, they all get down, like they all like the bus just stops, and Izuku's just like, oh, I was hearing about this from somebody from somewhere. I don't know, man. And everybody gets off the bus, and Izuku's the last one to get off, and he walks by Aizawa, and he's like, oh yeah, I know your trick, by the way. And Aizawa's like, yeah, but you still have to go. And he's like, oh, I never said that I wasn't going to. And that's just more fun of a challenge. And Aizawa's like, oh, you're such a weird kid. And Izuku just goes to the edge of the cliff, and he gives a little salute, and he jumps down, and everybody's like, wait, what? And there's a few people that actually follow him. And it goes back to the whole, if your friends were jumping off a cliff, would you? And hold on. And Inasa, Todoroki, Momo, Araki, Ida, and Kaminari all take it way too literally. And they all follow him down. Aizawa just sighs, and he's like, just go ahead and throw the rest down the cliff. And everybody's like, wait, no, let us get back on the butt. And they all just fall down. The reason why I'm saying Kaminari is just because it's like, Kaminari is honestly such a W man. Like, dude, you know the combos that him and Deku could really be hitting on people? Anyways, like the combo quirks, like, bro, it's insanity. And the second Izuku gets down there, he sees a bunch of monsters, and he's like, these things are pretty much all just mud. And he's just like, oh, this is gonna be so boring now. And everybody's like, wait, what? And he just takes control over like 2 or 3, and he's just like, everybody get on one. And they all just get on them, and they just start walking or flying with the one pterodactyl one, and they all just like walk to the camp, and they make it in like 20 minutes. And then Izuku's just like, go back into the forest. And they all just go back into the forest. And everybody, and the teacher just like, who, what, when, where, why, how? And Izuku's just like, I'm built different. And Aizawa's just like, oh, I don't get paid enough for this. And he's just thinking in his head, Nezu better give me a paid raise right here, right now. And let's see. And the Wild Pussycats, they introduce themselves, and they're just like, oh yeah, by the way, we'll give you guys food for today, seeing as you guys did make it in record time. And they're just looking at Izuku, thanks to you. And Izuku's like, who's that boy? And everybody's like, So he walks over there, and he's like, hey kiddo. And he squats down to his level and like ruffles his hair. And Koda's just like, wait, you can control water, can't you? And he's just like, sure can. And he stands up and goes back to the group, and Mandalay is shocked that Koda didn't try and do anything or nothing. So let me try and find where I'm at. Okay, they all go and enjoy dinner, but Deku, he doesn't, like Izuku, he doesn't like do it with the rest of them. He goes and he actually walks off, and he goes and sits with Koda. And he just goes and chills with him. And after dinner, everybody goes to the hot springs. Like, he's going and chilling with Koda and just talking with him, and just like, the basics. And then they all go to the hot springs, and since there's no Mineta, I don't really see that as there being a problem. And apparently, Koda was talking to Mandalay about Izuku, and Mandalay's like, hey, Izuku Midoriya, or hey, Izuku, can you come here really quick? And everybody's just like, wait, what? And Izuku's like, yeah, sure. So he gets out of the bath, like the tub, like the hot tub thing, and he just goes and talks to Mandalay, and she just explains everything to him. Was like, yeah, I felt you should know this, because I don't know why he takes a really attuned liking to you, and I don't know, like, you're the first person that he's allowed to like touch him in like forever since the whole incident. And he's like, probably because I have a water quirk as well, and I do look like, I don't know why, but my black hair does look a lot like his parents. And she's just like, wait, could you possibly relate it? And he's like, absolutely not. And he tells her kind of like, without giving away the details about the water tribe, because they're a secret nation, like no one knows about them, kind of like what Wakanda was. Like people knows that there's people that live there, but not that they're that powerful. And he's just like, I'm actually from the Antarctica down south. And she's just like, whoa, that's so cool. You were born there and you were given a water quirk? That's amazing. And it's just like, yeah, let's go with that. And she's like, wait, what? And he's like, anyways, so we were actually traveling up to the north to visit our other tribe that was up there. And she's like, oh, that's so cool. And he's like, yeah, I was about like one at the time. And my parents ended up dying, but in their final breath, they used their water quirks, quote unquote, and sent me there. And they took me in and took care of me. And Mandalay's just like shocked, and she's just like, whoa, that's crazy. I'm happy that you're here with us though. And he's like, yeah, me too. I'm happy I can be a hero. And after that, he goes and he sits with Coda again at the hiding spot and sees that he's trying to work on his quirk, and he's like, here, let me help you out really quick, kid. And Coda's just like, yeah, of course, anything and would help. And he's just like, he watches Coda do it one more time, and he's like, here, okay, this is going to be a completely botched explanation. I'm just going to do it what works in my mind. He says, don't worry so much about trying to launch it with speed. Try and gather the water first. And Koda's just like, wait, what? And what he does is he shows him, he takes the residue water that was on the wall, like, in a really, like, and what he does is he scales it up and he pulls his arm back and he launches it. But he added an extreme focus on gathering the water and not so much on the push. And Koda sees this and was like, oh, that's so cool. And he's like, okay, gather as much water as you can. I'm gonna help you out with this. So Koda, he starts gathering as much water as he can, really concentrating on it. And Izuku, what he's doing is he's controlling the water, lifting the weight, so that way it doesn't like have that much of an effect on Koda's body. And then he's like, now, like a slingshot, like you're pulling back and launch. And Koda does just that, and he shatters the rock in front of him. And Izuku's like, I'm very impressed, kid. And he ruffles his hair, putting him on his back, because Koda is wiped from that. Like, because he's still a kid. And, like, Koda's just passed out on his back, and he walks back to the camp, and that's that with Koda. And then the next day rolls around, and it's actually a training day for everyone. And, well, it's a training 2 weeks for everyone. So, anyways, uh, Izuku's working on like finding the rest of like the water in the soil, and he's like, I wonder if I could do something. And what he does is he creates a water clone because they kind of just let him do his own thing because they didn't really know like what they were dealing with it, and he was already strong enough to be able to come up with his own training. And he actually creates a water clone and makes it look exactly like him. And he's like, I wonder, could I? And what he does is he drops the clone and himself both into the ground, and he swaps positions with it and rises back up. And he's like, whoa, now that was cool. So he has like a little bit of like a swap ability. Like if you've ever seen Loki from Marvel Rivals, kind of like that, like how you can place down a clone and then swap with him. His distance is only like how far you can see though. And he's just like, whoa, that's gonna come in handy. Like even the clone technique would just come in handy. And anyways, so after this, it's the nighttime again, and he goes and sits with Koda, and or he goes to try and go sit with Koda, but he's like, wait, where is Koda at? And he goes and he looks at the wall where he's training and sees that it was still wet from the water, and he immediately was like, wait, where's Koda? And he runs out thinking maybe an animal, and he just hears a maniacal laughter, and he's like, you really care for this kid, don't you? And it's Muscular. He's holding up Koda by the throat, and he's like, and Izuku says, Koda! And he's like, and Muscular says, you take another step and I kill the brat. And Deku's just like, hey Koda, remember what I taught you? And Koda's like, wait, now? And he's just like, oh yeah. And Koda releases a water ball, and Izuku brings it back at Koda, encasing him in in like a ball of water and ice that's like impenetrable, with healing water inside, so Koda will heal. And Muscular's like, neat trick. I'm gonna kill you now. And he launches at Izuku, and Izuku, the second he sees that, is just like, crap. And he just dodges out of the way, and he's like, "If you want to kill me so bad, you'll have to come and get me now, won't you?" And he jumps off the rocks, and he lands where he was trending before, and it's a super like wetlands area of it. And Muscular lands next to him, not realizing what like position he just got put into. And Izuku, he immediately takes all of the water and he creates like a ice dome around them and is like, "No escaping now. You sure you want to keep doing this?" And Muscular's like, "I would never back down from a fight." And he's about to launch on Izuku and he's like, "Your funeral." And he creates hundreds of like water clones and they all rush at Muscular. And he's like, "Wait, how are there so many of you? You have a clone quirk?" And he's like, "Not quite." And they all encase him with water and he encases them and he encases Muscular into a ball of ice that perfectly fits into his muscles, and it seeps into his muscles and he controls the water in his muscles, like making him go down to his regular form. And what he does is, "Man, maybe if you ended up not jumping down that rock, you actually would have had a fighting chance." And he covers Muscular's head and makes him lose enough oxygen just so that way he'll pass out, but not enough to kill him. Then after this, he goes and finds Koda, takes him back to camp, and he leaves Muscular and Koda with Aizawa. And Aizawa's like, "Kid, how did you manage?" And he's just like, "Don't worry, I'm going back out there." And the second he does this, he sees the fire and he's like, "I know exactly what I have to do." And what he does is he takes some water and he launches himself up into the middle, kind of like Pain, and he's just hovering there on like a pillar of ice, and he's just like, "Whoa, it's windy up here." And all of a sudden we just get this super cool scene where he just pulls up all of the water from the area without killing any of the plants, and it's like super surprising. And he makes a massive tidal wave that just cancels out all of the fire, turning it into a wall of steam, to where like the only people that are like on the other side were Moonfish, Kurogiri, and Mr. Compress. Like Toga wasn't on that side yet, Shigaraki wasn't on that side yet, Dabi wasn't on the side yet, like nobody was over there yet. And then after this, he finds Tokuyami going absolutely insane, and he ends up taking out Moonfish. And he's just like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do this." And he encases him in a ball of water, taking him to Todoroki, and he's like, "Wait, have y'all seen Bakugo? Wait, Bakugo." And they all just realize that he's gone missing. And Mr. Compress is, "Oh, looking for your friend, eh? Here, I guess you could take him back since I have no use for him now." And he throws him a little marble, and he's like, "Good thing I took a little bit of that Ice Kid's quirk and put it in that little ball." And they just are like, "How do you do that?" And he just snaps his fingers, and it goes from a marble back to a chunk of ice. And Deku catching this, he immediately molds it into an ice like spike, and he launches it at Mr. Compress, and he's like, "Oh, we can't be having that now, can we?" And he turns it back into a little marble, and he just launches it back down at them, and then uncompresses it, and Deku just turns it back into water and back into ice and launching it back at Compress. And they just have this like back and forth until Mr. Compress is like, "Fine, I'll go away now." And he compresses himself and goes back to Kurogiri, and Bakugo is gone. But from this, we find out that Momo actually placed a tracking device on top of Mr. Compress, and on top of Bakugo as well. We'll just say for plot reasons. And then she immediately reports it to Aizawa and All Might, and like All Might appears at like the forest like training camp, and everybody's just like, "Whoa, All Might!" And he's like, "Izuku, may I speak with you really fast?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And they just like go and talk in private, and he's like, "I would like to give you my quirk, you see." And he goes into his Small Might form, showing Deku his injury, and he's like, "So many doctors have tried to fix this, but no one can. I need you to take my quirk so that way I can pass my quirk on, and I don't have to live with the shame anymore." And he's like, "Oh, just that?" And he's just like, "Stay perfectly still for me." And he takes a vial of like perfect, like the special water that Katara had in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he just starts mystically healing it and pushes it and pushes, and it's gone. After this, they all immediately return to wherever UA is located. I forget the name. And All Might like finds out that Momo had a tracker on Bakugo and immediately tracks him down, finding All for One. And like Deku was not having it. Like what he did is he went with him and he took Bakugo and he dipped. Kind of like in the original, but it was only Izuku this time. And this time, All Might has like a way easier job fighting All For One than in canon, because for one, All For One was not full power yet. All Might was not full power at all. He was like only running on like fumes pretty much, and like that's just like basically going off of it. Like it's still like not easy to do, but it's like he ends up doing it, putting All For One in prison, blah blah blah, and they end up having a month break, and we end up getting a cute scene with Fuyumi and Deku just cuddling up on the couch watching a movie. Thank you all so much for watching What If Deku Had Waterbending Part 3. It's honestly such an honor to be coming on this app and being able to express my love for making videos like this. So if you guys enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, and without further ado, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful night and peace out.